The war on drugs has been a complete and total failure. It has done no good whatsoever and has caused a hell of a lot of harm. And because of our ego and our stubbornness, people just refuse to admit it, and we keep fighting it. I believe we should legalize drugs like cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines, and keep drugs like antibiotics or roofies illegal. I don't think anyone should be doing drugs. I think it's a big mistake. But when it comes down to the final decision, I think it's our body, our right, and should be our decision. Just don't drive. We should treat drugs the way we treat alcohol. I have had people tell me that I am completely nuts for having this attitude and for thinking like this. But, I don't see it. We have failed to keep drugs out of our country. We have failed to keep drugs out of our prisons. It's not happening, and it's never going to happen. People say to me, well, I could see legalizing marijuana, but not cocaine or heroin. Why not? Whose body is it? Why should you not get to make the decision about what goes into your body? People say to me, yeah, but cocaine, some people do it and they get violent. Okay, that's true. Some people also do alcohol and get violent. What's the difference? I have had people tell me that I sound crazy for saying this because I'm open about it. And they say I should not talk to anyone because it makes me sound crazy. Well, I'm not going to stop because I think the only way we are going to improve our lives and improve this country is if we start talking about these issues. The amount of violence that's going on because of this idiotic war on drugs is happening mostly in Mexico. There are some places in Mexico where the drug cartels are more powerful than the government. If we had that kind of violence here, I think drugs already would have been legalized. I've been listening a lot to Dr. Carl Hart, who is a neuroscientist and specializes in drug addiction at Columbia University. I have learned that the entire war on drugs is based on ignorance and lies. Now, whenever I talk about this, there's always somebody who thinks that I only want drugs legalized because I'm doing drugs. I'm a truck driver. I get random drug tests. They're always a surprise for me. I always pass them in the past 10 years, and I'm not doing any drugs. The only drugs I've done is alcohol, and I smoked some marijuana when I was like 19 or 20. And I quit drinking alcohol about 3 years ago. I have had people tell me, but what about people who overdose on drugs? That's horrible. Well, I agree. But we got to realize why they overdose on drugs. The reason is because they don't know how, when they get their drugs from a drug dealer, they don't know how much of it has been cut. They don't know what kind of dose they're taking. So the main reason people are overdosing on drugs is because it's illegal. The main reason that people cross our southern border and come in the United States illegally is because of the poverty they're suffering, and my heart goes out to them. But that's not the only reason. I think a secondary reason is because they're trying to escape the violence from the drug cartels. And I think if we were to legalize drugs, it'd put these drug cartels out of business, the violence would stop, and the number of illegal immigrants entering our country would be reduced. I have also had a drug dealer tell me that he's against legalizing drugs because basically the corporations would take over it then and it would put him out of business. So he's like, what would I do? I'm like, well, we're going to have to find other ways to help people who are making their living dealing drugs. If I was president of the United States, I would use an executive order to change the mission of the DEA from going after drug dealers and drug addicts to going after sexual predators, especially sexual predators who prey on children. I think that would do a lot more good for our country. And by the way, I stole that idea from Jesse Ventura. I would also mass pardon a lot of non-violent drug offenders because I think it's ridiculous to lock someone up and completely ruin their lives because of the chemicals they chose to put in their body. As far as I'm concerned, if somebody wants to do cocaine or heroin or meth or whatever, I don't think you should do it. I think it's bad for your health and you're making a big mistake. But if you choose to do it, as long as you don't go driving and don't cause any harm to anyone, it's nobody's business. Why do we lock up drug addicts and completely ruin their lives? Is it to protect their health? I mean, that doesn't make sense. There are doctors, lawyers, judges, politicians, police officers, a lot of teachers, a lot of different people who are doing drugs, but they usually don't get caught. It's usually the minorities and the poor people who get caught, because that's who the cops basically go after, because they know they don't have the money to hire lawyers to get them out of it. I think the only reason that anyone would be against legalizing drugs is because of the propaganda and all the lies and all the indoctrination they have been exposed to.